Hello everyone, this is Sean from VLearnChinese.com. Today I'm going to explain to you something really exciting, which is a very fundamental property of Chinese, which is the basic Chinese verb to be, which in English and Chinese they work quite differently. And I'm going to explain to you using English as an analogy to explain how Chinese ones work. So firstly, as you are fully much aware if you're an English speaker, the English basic verbs are is, am, are, will be, was, and were. And the way they are distinguished from each other is that this is the present tense, is, am, are, and based on the pronoun, you will use a different verb. In the past tense, you have was, were, and it's also based on the pronoun, and the future is will be. So you can see that in English it has a great reference to time, and it's specific, the verb is specific to the time and the pronoun. However, Chinese works completely differently, and where English doesn't have a distinction, Chinese does, and where Chinese has a distinction, English doesn't. So firstly, I'll show you where English doesn't have a distinction, where Chinese does. For example, the present tense. If I say I am an engineer, that's a noun. So you will use am for a noun. For an adjective, you can say I am hungry, I am tired, but it's still am because I is the same and because it's present tense. And if you speak about a verb, you will say am as well. I am eating, I am sleeping, I am talking. And if you talk about a place, you'll probably just add an at afterwards. I am at home, or I am at work, I am at the shop. And so the verbs and places, I put those together because Chinese is the same. But notice how the basic English verbs do not distinguish if the end of the sentence is a noun, an adjective, or a verb, or a place. But Chinese does. But Chinese does not distinguish whether it is future tense, present tense, or past tense. So the way Chinese works is that, again, regardless of the time, if you're speaking about a noun, you will use the word shi, S-H-I, and its fourth tone, shi. For example, by now, if you're watching this, you know, 我 is me. 我是 Sean, because that's my name, and I'm a noun. 我是 Sean. So, if you were talking about the past, in Chinese, you might have a word in the sentence that explains it's the past, but you could still say before or previously, 我是 Sean. Doesn't matter that it was the past. So, for adjectives, use 很. For example, you may not know the word for hungry yet, but I'll just use it briefly. 饿. And so I can say 我很饿. But if, for example, if I were talking about the future, and I would say tomorrow I will be hungry, I could say tomorrow 我很饿. So regardless of the time, so long as it's an adjective, it's 很, H-E-N in pinyin. The H is a little of a sound like that. Third tone, 很. And finally, for verbs, you will use if the rest of the sentence or the predicate is a verb, you'll use 在. So, for example, I'm eating, you'll say 我在 eating, 吃饭. If you were talking about yesterday or tomorrow, still about eating, and you were describing a situation in which you were eating, you would still use 在regardless of time. And also, finally, for a place. For example, I'm at home, I was in the shop, I will be at the factory. In Chinese, that would all be 在 as well. So, just temporarily, I won't expect you to know this yet, but 家 means home. So if I say 我在家, I'm at home. But I could have said yesterday while I was at home, 我在家. I say yesterday, 我在家. Tomorrow, 我在家. So 在 for places and verbs. So hopefully this is all clear to everyone. It's quite a lot to take in at one time. So the reason the matrix is here is to show you the distinctions and how they're different between the languages. So you'll notice that as you go down a column, English doesn't change, but Chinese does. Is MR, because the tense is the same in this column, but you're talking about a noun, adjective, and verb. So is MR 是很在. But as you're going across the rows, you'll notice that the Chinese doesn't change, 是, but the English changes, was, were, is, MR, will be. So that the idea of the matrix is to help you see the distinctions and how they work. So if this is clear and good, please pass some comments at the end so that I can know. And good luck for your Chinese learning.